Hey guys, TCG Collector back at it again with another video. Today we have another deck tech. We have Azlask, the Swelling Scourge. This is a Eldrazi'S Swarm build. So with this one, whenever an Eldrazi you control dies, you get an experience counter. Then you can pay Wooburg and all your creatures get +X until end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Remember, experience counters go on the player. Then all your spawns and scions get indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. So it's really cool. It can go really quick. All depends on how you build it. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to start off with our basics. I got 2 mountains. We're actually going for the full art Eldrazi lands, but they haven't all come in the mail yet. So 2 mountains. We got 2 swamps. 2 plains. We only got 1 of that one right now. Then we're on 3 forests. Only 3 though. We have enough utility lands to where it's not needed. Then we're on 4 islands. I'm actually thinking about cutting the island count a little bit. It's not as relevant as everything else is. Then we're running 1 of each dual land. Honestly, you don't have to run these. You can get by just fine with shock lands and some fetches. These are proxies though, so I usually proxy my deck beforehand, and then I get all the cards required for the build afterwards. We got a Mana Confluence, Command Tower, Gaia's Cradle, and we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This makes all of our other lands forests, so if we didn't have any creatures and we just had these 2 out, this would at least produce 1 forest because of Yavimaya. Same thing with Urborg. It makes all of our lands swamps in addition, so they're basically all bayous. Then we have Eye of Ugin. Makes all of our Eldrazi's cost 2 less, and we can search for a colorless creature card and reveal it, put it into our hand, so it's high utility. Eldrazi Temple, if we're casting an Eldrazi, it produces 2 instead of 1. And we have Ancient Tomb. I was going to try to fit in the new Ugin's Labyrinth, or Urza's Labyrinth, whatever it is. It just didn't fit well in here. Alright, then we're just going to hop right into the main board. We got Demonic Tutor to start off with. Just 2 mana, search something, put it in your hand, shuffle your deck. Grim Tutor, same thing, except you lose 3 life. Rise the Eldrazi. After it resolves, you pop something, then you have target player draw 4 cards, and then take an extra turn after this one, and then you have to exile it, but it's fine. Vampiric Tutor, search your deck for a card, put it on top of your deck, lose 2 life. Kozilek's Command, this is a big card in here. Usually you're getting your waste symbols off of your spawns. This actually makes more spawns too, so it's really good. You usually pop a bunch of them. If you have out some kind of token doubler, you'll get double the amount, obviously. It's really high utility, I like it. We got Cyclonic Rift. We usually only do the overload cost. We don't usually do the 2-drop. Ugin's Binding, big one. This is our 2nd Cyclonic Rift. If you cast something with CMC 7 or higher while this is in your grave, it's basically another Cyclonic Rift. Teferi's Protection, you play Commander, you know what Teferi's Protection does. Eldrazi Confluence. I'm actually thinking about cutting this one, but it can make up to 3 spawns, so we keep it in for now. Ugin the Ineffable. It makes all of our colorless spells cost 2 less, and when it +1s, it makes a body that will eventually come to hand. We have Idol of the False God. It just makes spawns. That's the big thing here, is you want to make as many spawns as possible, and once it has 8 counters, it becomes an 8/8 with Annihilator 2. Urza's Incubator, name Eldrazi's, your stuff costs less. The One Ring, ETB, protection, and draws you cards. Forsaken Monument, you don't really care about the doubling mana portion. You're just here for the bigger bodies and the +2 to life. Darksteel Monolith, you can play 1 thing for free every turn. It's great. Cryptolith Rite, just in case you don't have your colors, boom, now you have colors. Rhystic Study, because you love asking your opponents if they pay the 1. Kozilek's Unsealing. This I didn't think was going to be as good as it was. Whenever you cast something with mana value 4, 5, or 6, you make 2 spawns. Whenever you cast something with 7 or greater, you draw 3 cards. That's 3 more cards than your opponents have. Awakening Zone, at the beginning of your upkeep, you make a spawn. From Beyond, at the beginning of your upkeep, you make a scion. And you could pay to sacrifice this, search your library for an Eldrazi card, and put it in your hand. The Kindred spells count for that, by the way, because they are Eldrazi spells. Path of Annihilation, when it enters the battlefield, you create 2 scions. And all your Eldrazi's tap for colors. And whenever you cast something with 7 or more, you gain 4 life. Parallel Lives, this is one of your doublers, or at least it's one of mine. If you would make it a token, make double that amount. Smothering Tithe, just more mana. Struggle for Project Purity, this is one of my pet cards now. You never use Enclave, you always use Brotherhood, because at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent draws a card, then you draw a card for each card drawn that way, and then you get to ask them if they pay 2. So, it's kind of cute. Grave Pact, because you're going to be sacrificing your spawns and scions, and it just makes your opponent sacrifice their board. Same thing with Dictate of Erebos. You sack your stuff, then they're forced to sack. It gets around Indestructible and all that. Kindred Discovery, because whenever you make a dude, you draw a card. And whenever you attack, you draw a card. Spoilers, you're not going to be attacking a whole lot with this. Then we got Doubling Season, because what's better than 2 tokens? That's right, 4 tokens. And what's better than 4 tokens? Infinitely more tokens. With Echoes of Eternity, your triggered abilities of colorless spells trigger an additional time. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you make a copy of it. Like this. Then you'd get 2 of these, where all of your 7 drops cost 2 less, and everything gets +2/+2. It's disgusting. Is another one of those? So for 2 mana, all of your tokens get evolved, so whenever something bigger comes in, they get bigger. For 4 mana, you create a token. It's easy. It's so easy. This deck kind of builds itself. Chattering Dispatcher, it says 2/3 with Myriad. End of Void, and whenever it leaves the field, you make a Scion. This is one of the big cards in this too. It's not expensive, like $1, but at the beginning of your combat, target creature gets +X/+0 and haste, and X is equal to your Eldrazi count. And you can see how that would just get out of control. Flare Drone. Whenever a colorless creature enters your battlefield, target opponent loses a life. You're playing small aristocrats at that point. Catacomb Sifter. When it enters, you make a dude, and when dudes die, you scry. The deck literally builds itself. It's so easy, and it's so fun too, for me at least. My pod didn't like it yesterday. Vial the Redeemer. You make dudes equal to the number of dudes that died this turn. And it has flash, so you can do it at instant speed. And this is one of the new ones. Eldrazi Repurposer. When you cast it, get a dude. When it leaves the battlefield, get a dude. Is another new one. Glaring Fleshraker. Whenever you cast a colorless dude, create a dude. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield, each opponent takes 1 damage. And then there's another new one you got here. When you cast it, you make 2 dudes. Whenever you sacrifice one of your Eldrazi's, this just gets bigger. And you got to remember, reach is right there. It's kind of hidden down there in the middle. Sifter of Skulls. Devoid. Whenever another non-token creature dies, make a dude. And again, enters the battlefield, make 2 dudes. Like, the whole deck just makes dudes. It's so good. I love it. It makes blockers for days. This one's the one with Kicker. When you cast it, get a land directly to the field. It doesn't come in tapped unless the land itself specifies tapped. And if you kicked it, exile target land. Smothering Abomination. Flying Devoid. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. And whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw a card. Spoilers, you're sacrificing your creatures all the time. So you're drawing a lot more cards. Do be aware, though, that's not a may. You have to draw the card. It is possible to deck yourself here. When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 spawns. When it enters the battlefield, you make 3 spawns. When you cast this spell, you make 3 spawns. Then, you could pay 1 in a generic, sacrifice an Eldrazi. This deals 2 damage to any target. So you could just burn your opponent out that way. And we got Ululek to copy those effects. So instead of burning for 2, you're burning for 4. It's nasty. Zuladoc, because what's better than free spells? That's right, 2 free spells. And if you got Ululek, 4 free spells. And if you got Echoes of Eternity, even more. And then you got this one. When it enters the battlefield, make 2 dudes. You could sacrifice a Scion to tap a creature. One of your few answers to flying here. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice any number of target creatures with power or toughness 1. And then you create that many flying 4/4 angels with vigilance. Again, the deck just kind of starts steamrolling at a certain point. Sire of Stagnation. Whenever an opponent plays a land, they mill 2, and then you draw 2. You got Brood Monitor. Enters the battlefield, you make 3 dudes. Those dudes can sack for 1 mana. And then you got this guy. At the beginning of your end step, return an Eldrazi creature from your graveyard to your hand. Then you make 2 Scions. Deceiver of Forms. He hasn't really gone off in this build yet, but he's 7 mana, so he's going to stay for now. Beginning of your combat, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an Eldrazi, all of your creatures become a copy of that until end of turn. May become. It's a may. You don't have to do it. Bane of Balaged. When it attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents they control. Then you're on to Null Drifter. You know, it's got that invoke cost, so you just play it for 3 and draw 2. But if you play it for 7, or you get it off a Cascade, you still get the draw 2, and you get that Annihilator 1. Void Winnower. I got this off my my Cascade yesterday. It was kind of disgusting. Your opponents can't cast even cost spells, and your opponents can't block with even costed creatures. Do remember, 0 is even. And then we're into the really big ones here. So we have the new Kozilek, the Broken Reality. When you cast him, up to 2 target players each manifest the top card of their library. You can target yourself. Keep that in mind. Then you draw a card for each card manifested this way, and all of your other colorless creatures get +3/+2. And if you notice, it's one of the ones we pulled during pre-release. We actually got all 3 during pre-release. Then we got Artisan of Kozilek. When he's cast, you return a creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield, and he's got Annihilator 2. Flare of Loyalties. When you cast him, gain control of something, it becomes a base power 10/10 with haste, Annihilator 2, and trample. And then this has Annihilator 2 and trample. Like, really, you just build up your Scions, make sure your opponents don't have anything, drop big bodies. Then we have Ulamog the Defiler. When you cast him, target opponent exiles half their library rounded up. He has Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. And then when Ulamog finally enters the battlefield, he gets +X/+X, where X is the highest mana value among permanents that were exiled with him. But they come in as counters. So he gets +1/+1 counters, equal to the highest CMC of permanents that were exiled with his ability. Then he gets Annihilator X, where X is the number of 1/1 counters. Original Kozilek. Cast him, draw 4 cards. When he goes to the graveyard, shuffle your graveyard back in the deck. Kozilek the Great Distortion. He can either use his second ability to discard a card and counter something with mana value X, where X is the CMC of what you discarded. But when you cast him, you draw until you have 7 cards in hand. And we have Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. When you cast him, exile 2 target permanents. When he attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Really good. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. When you cast him, destroy target permanent. And when he goes to the graveyard, you shuffle your graveyard back in. Ulamog Pathraiser. Can't be blocked by except by 3 more creatures. So he has cat butt. So he has Super Menace. It that betrays. Whenever an opponent sacrifices one of their non-token permanents, you get that permanent. So when you start sacking off your Scions and your Spawns and they're forced to sack things, and if you have this out, you get them. They become yours. Emrakul, the World Anew. When you cast him, you get everybody's creatures. When he dies, you lose all of your creatures. You're forced to sack them all. And he has protection from every spell cast this turn. Last but not least, Emrakul the Promised End. You cost 1 less to cast for each card among types in your graveyard, and you gain control of target players next turn. After that, they gain an additional turn, but you can royally screw somebody over with this. But that's it, guys. That's what I got. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.